So I just want to welcome everyone to another show, an episode of the Road to Radical Visibility, the place where I am so passionate about helping LGBTQ plus neurodiverse and females really become more bold in the expression of themselves, their mission, and their truth in life and business. I'm so excited about our guests today. As you all know, I just have the coolest people on here, and I found another one. So I know that you all will enjoy this show and this podcast because it is going to be rich with some golden nuggets about claiming freedom, about being who you are, about what that can feel like, what is on the other side of kind of those risks and that fear and hesitancy, that when we really truly believe into ourselves and we have other people who believe into us, how much more expansive and joyous and easy and free life can be. Now, I'm not saying that it's always going to be like that, but when you're surrounded by other people who are themselves, I can guarantee you it is more freeing and more freedom of the way of being. I experienced that on a recent trip to Mexico, but I won't go into that. Check out my TikTok for some of those videos. Anyway, I am so excited to have my guest here. I'm just going to read an introduction about her. And we met actually through another person that we know both in common. And I'm just so blessed and grateful for the connections that I make through other people. So my guest today is Elena Joy Thurston, and she is an inspirational LGBTQ plus speaker, trainer, and founder of the nonprofit Pride and Joy Foundation, which is dedicated to building self-awareness and safety for LGBTQ families and their allies. So needed, so needed. A Mormon mom of 4 who lost her marriage, her church, and her community when she came out as a lesbian. Elena's viral Tedx talk, if you haven't seen it, I'll put the link in the comments. Go check it out. On surviving conversion therapy has been viewed 40,000 plus times and landed her media and speaking opportunities with ABC, CBS, Fox, Boston's First Event, Seacoast Wellness Series, and Thrive. Elena inspires her audiences to learn how emotional intelligence can improve company morale and productivity, changing members' lives in a practical way. Now you know why she is on the Road to Radical Visibility show and podcast. Welcome, welcome, Elena. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much. I am really excited for this conversation. We're going to have a good time.
Oh, yeah, because we had to stop conversing before the show even started to start the show. Like, it was crazy. So this show is about radical visibility, and obviously you have a story about your own radical visibility. So give us a little bit of that story about your radical visibility.
Absolutely. I'll sum it up for you. And then if you have questions, we can dive deep. Let's see. I, like many Americans, grew up in a very dysfunctional household. And that led me to seek out a community of support and normalcy, right? Function, right? That's what I was really seeking. And I found a religion that told me exactly how to be a great mom, how to be a person that God would love, and how to get to heaven. And all of that sounded real good. And so I jumped right in, both feet, right into the baptismal font. And I checked all the boxes. I was married at 20, started having kids at 22, had 4 kids before I was 32. And then at 37, after quite some time of realizing, well, I wasn't realizing, but things were breaking down. My marriage was breaking down. My mental health was breaking down. Like, so much was kind of breaking down. And that really strips away a lot of the nonsense, right? And that's when I realized, oh, yeah, I'm not supposed to be married to a man. Look at that. So I came out to myself at 37, came out publicly at 38. And in the interim, what happened there was realizing the risk of, if I quote unquote chose to live this lifestyle, I was giving up not just my marriage, but the religion very much teaches that the only way to be with your family for eternity is to be worthy and to not sin and to check the boxes. And so by choosing, again, in air quotes, this lifestyle, I was choosing to give up a relationship with my 4 children. And that was not an option. My children were my life. And so I enrolled myself in conversion therapy to try to fix the situation so that I could regain my status in the celestial kingdom. And then at the end of that, it came down to my kids are either going to have a gay mom or a dead mom. Those were my options. Like 57% of participants in conversion therapy, I was suicidal. And when it got to that point, I am so grateful that I chose that it was better for my kids to have a gay mom. And so I claimed that literally, it's funny because people are like, you chose to be visible. And I am choosing that now. I choose that every single day now, sometimes every hour right now.
Preach. Yep.
Right. But at that time, that was not a choice. It was, I want to stay alive. And the most alive moments, the most connected to the earth moments I had was when I would tell someone, I'm a lesbian. I'm a lesbian. And every time I did, I was like more here. And so I just kept saying it because I just wanted to wake up the next day and be with my kids.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then came the TED Talk, and then came the nonprofit, and here we are.
Well, I'm so glad that it was a necessity for you to have your children to have a gay mom. I think, I feel so grateful for each person such as yourself that really stands up and becomes and steps into this really the fullest part of themselves when we've been taught by religion, by cultural constructs, by societal, by familial dynamics to chop off these parts of ourselves. And yet we're supposed to be worthy, but how are you worthy when you chop off the best parts of you, or you're not presenting as whole? I was thinking earlier today, actually, where I was putting on my makeup this morning, I was like, I wonder if I've been shamed into like, sometimes the blessings, like being shamed, like, well, you should be grateful for what you have, like you're blessed other people, so you shouldn't think that, or you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do that, right? And how much shame plays a role in how we present ourselves.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So yes, like feeding right into that. I can remember driving down the road. We lived in this neighborhood prior to the divorce. Like my husband was a partner with one of the big 4 accounting firms. Like we were blessed, #blessed, right? And so I remember driving down the road in that neighborhood, literally tree-lined streets, white picket fence. Okay. It was that neighborhood. And I'm driving down and I'm thinking, I'm feeling like I hate my life. And I'm thinking, how dare you? You are so privileged. You are so blessed. You have healthy children, smart children. You have an abundant income. You have insurance. Like there was just this constant voice of like, how dare you say something's wrong? What shame there was in that, right? So very much along those lines. And when I talk about it, I say I covered those thoughts with a blanket of shame because I couldn't even take the time to like think, why do I hate my life? Why do I not enjoy this? I should be enjoying this. Why don't I? I didn't ask any of those critical thinking questions because I was so ashamed of the feeling of not being grateful.
Yeah. Yes to all of that, because it is kind of too, when we're shamed, we're in our brainstem. Shame doesn't come from the parts of our logical brain for critical thinking. So then when we shame ourselves for thinking those things, then we shame ourselves for not being able to get out of those things, and then we still aren't good enough. And no matter what, you're not ever good enough. Like you have to do this one thing, or you have to do this, and all of it's left to this thing high in the sky.
Yeah.
And it's like that never made sense to me. And I wonder how many of you, our listeners, and please make sure to put it in the comments of the YouTube video if you're watching this, or put it in the comments of the episode. How many of you have felt these same things? How many of you have been in situations where religious trauma has played a huge role in the development of your identity? And how the more we beat ourselves up, the more we get to stay there, the more we stay safe in that neurological patterned way of being, because that's what we've been told is the safe spot.
Right.
And I love how, you know, and even at 37, didn't you say at 37 you came out to yourself, and then at 38 you came out publicly? Some people may think that it's easier the older that you get. And I'm not here to say what's easier and what isn't easier at what age. I think when we truly step into ourselves, it all can feel difficult at each individual stage.
Yeah.
It's important not to be comparing someone else's trauma or they've had it worse to your own. And I think some people can fall into that trap.
Oh, huge. Absolutely huge. I mean, I remember feeling like when I was really struggling with my mental health, and I didn't even have the words for like anxiety or depression. Like I just didn't have those words. But what I heard, what I felt was, you know, my friend, she went through horrible things. She's going through horrible things, right? Like I need to put all my focus and energy into supporting her. And here I wake up like not happy with my life. It was again that like shame of, you know, I need to be outside of myself. I need to be focusing on other people who have it worse than me, right? There was no time to like sit down and think, yeah, I am really anxious. Not every mom explodes when a child knocks over a glass of soda, but I was sure every mom did, right? And that's how I was justifying it to myself, because I wasn't able to like take a beat and think and really question, like, what is this reality and what am I running from? Why am I not willing to take those questions to heart? Instead, it was just so and so has it worse. If anyone deserves to be upset about life, it's so and so. It's not me. I don't have a right to be upset with my life, but they do. They have it worse than me.
So can anyone relate to this? Anyone. I can't see you in your house or in your car where you're listening to this, but please just raise your hand. And I want to tell you that we see you, because we're both raising our hands and we hear you, right? I think that, you know, the how dare I, and focusing on external, right? That's what we're told, like put other people before you. And even I'm just going to say this right here, you know, as a mother, told that you should care for your child more than you care for yourself. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I couldn't do and didn't want to do was that. And let me explain that a little bit, because I was already traumatized. I was already in my brainstem 24/7. I was already that. And I realized that there's no room for that if I'm not caring for myself. So I didn't buy into all of that stuff. And that really does equal to discrimination as a mom, and in how other people view you, or even how the church is like, just spank your kid, just spank your kid. Well, my kid, I didn't want to spank her. Yeah. Like I didn't feel like that was the best way for her. Yeah. And yet every preschool she went to, that's what they told me to do. Right? Because you have to put the fear of God in them. Kids already have enough fear. You don't need to put it in there. Like it's enough. So when you decided to say at 38, I'm going to come out publicly, like how did that happen for you? What was the turning point to say, now I need to go public with it? Because people will ask you, why, what does it matter? Why do you need to even tell anybody?
I was trying to find my people. I was so alone. Like I lost everyone. When you're Mormon, like that's especially where I was. I mean, if you're Mormon in like, I don't know, Michigan, like you probably have a lot of friends that aren't Mormon. But if you're Mormon in Idaho, Utah, Arizona, parts of Southern California, like all of your friends are Mormon. all of them. They're assigned. Like the wards are set up geographically. So the closest 300 families to you, those are your best friends. And then when you pick up and move and you sit down again, like now those are your best friends and those friends are gone, right? Like that is the culture. And so to come out, you lose it all. I mean, I lost the best friend I'd had who had introduced me to my husband, and she'd been my best friend for 20 plus years. You know, I lost my in-laws who had been in my life for 20 years. I was the oldest, like I was the first one married in. There were 5 kids and Chad was the oldest. And so I was there at all of their weddings. I was there when all of their babies were born. I had 27 nieces and nephews. I mean, I lost everything. So I was just trying to find my people and I didn't know how to. And so it's funny because my first baby steps were finding the ex-Mormon community.
Yeah, the people who were in that cultural construct, right?
Right,
that
but still knew everything, right? Knew all the jargon, knew what it was to lose all of it, right? So we essentially set up house just again, right? Like we were ex-Mormons instead of Mormons, but it was in there that I found the safety to just tell my story. We were all telling our stories, right? What the phrase was, your shelf broke, because the concept is that all Mormons run into things, news of history or current day issues. You run into things that doesn't make sense and you don't really agree with it. And why is it like that? And you're told that answer will come in the afterlife. So put that on a shelf. Shelf that for now, right? The answer will come, maybe in this life, maybe in the afterlife, but God will answer you. Put it on a shelf. And then when you get to the point where you're done, then that phrase is like your shelf broke. And sometimes for some people, it was just one big major thing. And for other people, it's just they kept piling stuff on that shelf and it finally broke, right? And so that was the conversation that was always happening within the social circles. What caused your shelf to break? And for me, it was like, oh, well, I'm gay. Like that'll break it real quick.
There's that.
And as I spoke, even though I was the only queer one in those circles, this story is universal. The story of finally coming into your own and finally like deconstructing what of me is from external issues and what of me is truly me, right? And so yes, that is a queer experience, but it's also a universal experience. And so as I realized the story had value and that people needed to hear it, and I needed to say it, quite frankly, I think that's how that visibility really came into play.
Well, I think this is one of the most powerful things about becoming visible to ourselves. And it really, there's a part that needs to speak out loud these stories, our truths, our desired way of being. And so many times I see people, you know, as a licensed psychotherapist, you know, where you go to therapy and then there's like a spot that's missing. And then you want to be visible and you want to speak your truth and you want to do all those things. But because there's something missing, you can't really reach this point of visibility because we're still looking externally. We're still looking at or shaming ourselves or blaming ourselves or accepting responsibility, and how powerful the stories are that when we share them, because I totally agree that we are human, and because we are human, there are foundational stories that each human has. I mean, if you look at every single movie in Hollywood, you could pretty much pick out the storyline of, oh, this is how this action movie is going to end. This is how this scary movie is going to end. This is how this rom-com is going to end, right? And that's how we really find community. And so that moves me right into the foundation that you have founded. And tell me about the inception of that and what really said, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, it did not start off that way. I did the TED Talk. I recorded the TED Talk in September of 2019 and finished out that year, starting to book some speaking engagements and kind of starting to finally put together like a 5-year plan. And in that 5-year plan was like, yeah, maybe I'll start a nonprofit at some point, right? Because that felt good. It just felt good. There was no other reason except it felt good. And then the talk went live in November of 2019 and the world exploded. Like all of a sudden I was getting speaking gig after speaking gig, podcast interview after podcast interview, right? And I was like, all right, I can do this. And I started like I don't even know what I was, a coaching company. I don't know. And I would run retreats and I would speak, and I would run retreats and I would speak. And by January, February of 2020, colleges were reaching out and saying, we want you to come speak to our queer students. And that was such a beautiful experience because many, as you know, many queer people, it's when they go off to college, right? They're kind of severing those ties and really coming into themselves and figuring that out. And so that's where I was like, we were bonding because they were 19 and coming out and I was 38 and coming out, and we were both baby gays. But then March of 2020 came. And I had 8 paid speaking engagements on the books canceled within 24 hours of each other. And I was face down in the couch and I started getting these messages from these students that I had been scheduled to go speak to. And they were saying, I'm home and I'm trapped.
Yep.
And I just came out last month and now I have no community. And sometimes their parents knew and were affirming or unaffirming. Sometimes their parents didn't know. And they were all trapped in one house together, right? I mean, we all remember those early days of COVID. At the time, I was thinking, oh my gosh, thank goodness I'm getting divorced. Because if I was still in the same house with that man, one of us would not be alive today. That was yes. Some serious stuff right there. So
you can cuss on here.
It's okay. So I was really wrestling with these kids, like it was just like, how can I help them? Because my favorite moment is I would give a talk, we would do Q&A, it would end, and I would have a dozen kids come up to me saying, I just need a hug. Can I just have a hug? You know? And so that's what I was missing, was those hugs. Like, I just wanted to hug all those kids. And in the frustration of feeling completely impotent was when the nonprofit was like, well, it's time. It's absolutely time. Because I was also getting, the podcast interviews were dropping, and of equal importance were all of these women who were messaging saying they'd heard an interview, they had 4 or 5 kids, they were Mormon, and they were trapped. And they had fallen in love with their best friend or whatever had happened. And they thought they were the only ones, just like I had thought I was the only one, right? And all I wanted to do was get them all together in one room so that they could see that they were not the only ones, right? There's so much healing that happens with that. So that's where the nonprofit came from. We're a COVID baby.
Well, I'm not gonna, I'll just say thank you for following your heart, and thank you for really allowing yourself the space to create whatever you were meant to create. You're right, there's so much value in knowing that we're not alone. And even before we started recording the show, we were talking about, even in my town, which is Redding, California, that it is still very oppressive for LGBTQ plus people. And being in Mexico with my accountability partner and his partner, and just being around that and having all of that just normalcy and love, like, to come back here, it does feel oppressive. And oftentimes when we come back to an oppressive place, the people around us say, like, well, what does it matter? Why can't you just be happy living here? Why can't you just do these things? Which, just FYI, for all of you who aren't viewing this, this is called shame, right? Those old shame patterns start taking over your fucking brain again. And we have to say, there's nothing wrong with me wanting something different.
Yeah.
And like, we have those blinders on, And my biggest fear for the longest time, and the reason that really propelled me into radical visibility, and people will say, Rachel, you're pretty out there. Like, people already say that. Like, I'm just warning everyone, like, there's more to come. Like, like, there's more. But the radical visibility point was, I'm not believing what everyone is telling me anymore. It is not right in my soul. It is not right in my heart. And in the beginning, it came across very much as defiance and rebellion. And I'm not conforming. And, oh, you say I can't do it? Fucking watch me do it anyway. Like, all of those, that's how that comes out, that really desire to be like seen and heard, even by ourselves. And then finding that community. So I'm wondering what you would just suggest, or how you encourage people to find community. How do you do that?
Damn.
Sorry, no easy questions in this interview.
I don't make many GIFs or memes, but the one that I did that I'm really proud of was like, historians have found the most amazing miracle that Jesus performed, and that was having 12 friends over the age of 30. Like, to have close friends at this point in our lives, that is not easy.
No.
So like, when you pose the question, like, how do you find and build community? Fuck, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, I think the way that I have seen it happen, and I have experienced it, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, and I'm not sorry for it, is by you being you.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just you, I mean everyone.
Absolutely.
The only way we find community is mirroring for each other, having that empathy for each other, giving each other that boost or the kick in the ass, like, say, hey, listen, you've got this, or this, you can do what you need to do for you. And so many times we withdraw that back really quick out of the fear of what will happen, or out of that just normal pattern of that neurological way of being, saying, wait, I'm not safe, come back here. Right. And it's also feeling like you may be alone in it. I'm wondering how many people have stood in a room of at least 1,000 people and felt alone. One of the reasons I love doing speaking events is because I don't feel alone. I love being on stage because I see people, we energetically interact, right?
Big time.
So tell us a little bit more about the foundation and the services that you offer, and who you're offering them to.
Yeah. All right. So if you talk to my director of operations, they'll be like, Elena does everything and she needs to stop.
Does she really? Who knows?
Right? Okay. So we have Pride and Joy Parents, which we feel very strongly that the best way to support LGBTQ kids is to empower their parents to become incredible advocates for them. And that's a journey, right? It goes from tolerating to allyship to advocating. And so we help parents kind of see, where are you right now on that journey? Where do you want to end up? Here are the steps to get there. And when we're able to do that, that is the biggest incredible support to that child. And that child can then have a chance of growing up to be a healthy queer adult. So that's one focus. And then we have like our corporate and organizational inclusion. What we have found is that when we can go into a workplace or a school where people are financially motivated to learn how to not be dicks to each other, then their hearts are a little more open and they're willing to learn a little more, versus like on Facebook. Like, you're not going to make anyone an ally on Facebook. But if you go into that same group of people, into their workplace with their bosses and their peers around them, right, then there's just a little more openness to learn and absorb information. So we do that, and we charge a lot of money, and then we take that money And we target rural universities and who have none or very little resources for their LGBTQ students. And we host workshops for them. It might be a career workshop, like how to show up for an interview, how to find your inclusive company, how to use your pronouns in a way that doesn't put people on the defensive, right? Like all those things. We also do suicide awareness and prevention workshops because we feel like suicide hotlines are the first line of defense, but really they should be the last, because who's going to talk to a stranger before they talk to their queer peers? And so we really feel like the queer college students can be the most empowering population to prevent suicide. So we invest into that. It's very Robin Hood. And then the last thing that we do right now, who knows what else we're going to add, but we have Pride and Joy Publishing. So we now own a publishing house, and we publish LGBTQ authors of memoirs and nonfiction, so empowerment books.
So if someone wanted to reach out to you to have you share with them and then use your services, how would they reach you?
Yeah, prideandjoyfoundation.com. It's all there.
So I just want to encourage those of you that are watching, and if you're listening, please take the moments to check this out. As a licensed psychotherapist for the last 18 years, and now working as a visibility coach, it is essential for each one of us to show up as ourselves and to be open to learning and honestly questioning our own belief and our own identity. If you are someone that feels threatened by an LGBTQ plus person, or even by a highly sensitive neurodiverse person, I want you to know that that's about you and not about them. And if you are in the religious community and you say that you have faith in God, I really want to ask you if you can really ask yourself, is this how Jesus would want you to treat somebody, without that lack of compassion and empathy and trying to change them, when it's not your job to change anyone, because we have all been made in his likeness. And, you know, I think there's a time when we need to really start speaking up about these things, because it is true, more and more people are finding out about it, and yet people are still dying because of it. This is the reality, and I don't wish to sugarcoat it for anyone. And so if you are having issues, please feel to reach out to me. If you don't like this, keep on scrolling by or get off my channel. So I just want to say thank you again, Elena, for being here. I am so looking forward to finding out even more about how you service people and helping you get the word out there, because it's really important. And I just want to say thank you so much. And I'm going to end this video like I end every single video. Please make sure to stay true to yourself, be kind to others, and always, always, always honor the wise one that is within you. Please make sure to stay true and be you. We'll see you all later. Bye.